Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or find a way to lose. Well. Terence Crawford is out here, man. I'm not sure what my boy is up to, man. You know what I'm saying? I like Bud Crawford. I like Earl Spence. I love boxing. I like Alexis Rocha. But I don't like Terence Crawford being over there with Golden Boy. And with everything Oscar has going on, all the enemies Oscar has made, I'm praying Terence Crawford doesn't sign a 2-fight deal, 3-fight deal, or nothing like that with Oscar De La Hoya. Oscar De La Hoya went on record today. He was talking about how he met with Terence Crawford. In case you guys didn't know, there was a certain boxing channel that had been talking about this Alexis Rocha guy in the direction it looked like he could go as far as who he could fight next. Now, I have no idea what boxing channel that was. Maybe it was this guy, let's see, who could it be? Hood Champion Boxing and Sports, huh? Oh, maybe it was me. Back on April 5th, I talked about Alexis Rocha. I told you. He was a southpaw Juan Manuel Marquez. I did a couple other videos, but then I went and talked about on December 21st how we're probably going to see Crawford versus Rocha. Talked about Stanley Eunice and Ortiz, and you know how Spence going to have to fight Thurman, and then eventually get to Ennis. Then I went on December 30th. I started talking some more about Crawford and Crawford possibly fighting Rocha. And then on January 19th, just the other day, I went out there after been monitoring Alexis Rocha and the movements in the WBO and how you see fighters just fall off or being, committed to certain fights where we knew once the fight happens, especially if they picked up a title, they would eventually be removed from the WBO. We saw it happen with Ennis. It's going to happen with Virgil Ortiz because I think Virgil Ortiz will beat Stanley Eunice, and then Virgil Ortiz will drop off the WBO as the number one, and he'll be over there in the WBA. At the end of the day, we predicted that Alexis Rocha would probably be the Crawford's mandatory. And it looks like that's what's going to happen. That's why I said it will not be a cherry pick because Alexis Rocha can fight. Now, if you watched the fight tonight, you saw Alexis Rocha can fight, but you also saw the opponent they had in front of him. Guy coming up in weight. Guy took the fight on 6 days' notice. Tough Ghanaian fighter. But the fighter was not Terence Crawford. But what we saw with Alexis Rocha is he believes in himself. He has some power in that left hand. And he could make the fight interesting. But I after watching tonight, the Alexis Rocha that fought Blair Cobb, that was a different Alexis Rocha. This Alexis Rocha, I think sometimes, I'm finally buying into the idea that sometimes fighters, they fight down to the level of their opponent. And I think Alexis Rocha could have got the Ghanaian fighter out of there a lot earlier. But you saw when he really sat down on his punches and made a decision to get the opponent out of there, you saw what happened. So he got him out. I think it was the 8th round, right? Clean, a nice right hook, just short-circuited. But this is my concern going forward. When De La Hoya, we know De La Hoya doesn't have a good relationship with anybody in boxing. So for De La Hoya to think that he can make a fight between Earl Spence, I'd have to say, hold your horses. Don't take it to the stupid, all right? What I don't want to see happen here is for some reason, Terence Crawford thinks, okay, I hook up with De La Hoya for like a 2-3 fight deal. I fight Alexis Rocha. Then, we see what's going on with Spence. Because, look, Spence is busy, okay? Fight Alexis Rocha, then somehow he thinks De La Hoya is the voice that he needs in his corner to go into negotiations in that 60-day window if Spence gets past Thurman to help negotiate a deal. I mean, look how much time it's taken to firm things up with Tank and Ryan. I mean, come on, it's still the same situation. Different networks, guys looking at money. Everybody wants to make sure they get the lion's share of the pie. If not, that they get what they feel they deserve because, like my boy Chicken Talk always says, you get what you negotiate. I just don't like the fact De La Hoya was talking about how he can possibly help Crawford a couple fights and eventually get the Errol Spence fight. That's all. He's blowing smoke, man. So Terence Crawford, if you're listening to this, right? Yo, man, don't fall for the okie doke. You want to sit here, man, you're a free agent. What you did is commendable. I don't agree with it, but I have to commend you for walking away from the Errol Spence deal because you felt like you deserved a bit more respect. They weren't handling you properly. But there's a lot of rumors floating out there that Terence Crawford already had pokers in the fire and was really waiting to get that Evander fight and was dragging things out. Now, there's a lot of rumors floating around. I'm not going to come out here and get into all that. But at the end of the day, Terence Crawford did what he wanted to do, and now he's in a position that he created for himself. But I just don't think the move to make is a sign with De La Hoya. You know what I mean? Terence Crawford left Top Rank for a reason. He's his own man, be his own man. He needs to go out there, and him and his team should be talking with Errol Spence right now, getting on the same page. So after Errol Spence, if he gets through Thurman, him and Errol Spence already have pretty much the deal done. They just need to get in the ring together after the Thurman Spence fight and announce their fight. But I just don't think it's going to go that way. You know what I'm saying? I just don't. But when it comes to Alexis Rocha, will he beat Errol Spence? Will he beat Terence Crawford? Look, man, I don't think so. But I think he can make it competitive. What concerns me about Terence Crawford is what we saw in that Evander fight, right? We talked about this in live. I've talked about it in other videos. But again, I'm going to go ahead and say that maybe he fought down to the level of his opponent. Maybe he was trying to fight more of an inside fight and a different type of fight against a guy who has a kind of aggressive come-forward style like Errol Spence to kind of prepare him for Errol Spence. Maybe he knew he just totally outclassed the guy. And he was just in there just having a glorified sparring session and having fun. All of those things are believable. But I'll tell you this. If he goes in there with Alexis Rocha and he finds himself trying to have a glorified sparring session like what he did with Evander, Rocha has power in both hands. Rocha, I saw what he did tonight. He threw to the left. He almost threw it like an arm punch. He almost shot the left out like a jab kind of. He didn't really cock it back. He just pushed it out real quick just to sit there and blind the opponent. Then he came back with a hard shot, that right hand, the hook. And that tells me that Rocha, if you're in there playing with him and you're trying to make it into a tickling contest, he's going to make you pay. Again, I'm not sure Rocha has enough to clip a guy like Terence Crawford. But we're going to find out if Terence Crawford was just playing around with Evander and having fun, or if Terence Crawford is kind of missing a beat. I personally think we have to wait and see what happens and who's going to be Crawford's next opponent. Because in my opinion, they should have been announced Alexis Rocha as the mandatory. So maybe this week we'll get that news. But there's a reason why De La Hoya posted this picture. I don't think it's because he closed the deal with Terence Crawford. I think De La Hoya is just sitting here trying to get under the skin of other promoters. And we know De La Hoya is all about playing games from time to time. One thing I am grateful for is that Bernard Hopkins didn't get on the microphone and talk. Yo, I don't like hearing Bernard Hopkins talk. I really don't, man. But that being said, people, we've been talking about this for a while now. Back in April, I started talking about Rocha, what I'm seeing. And, throughout the next couple of months, I talked about him, but I really started to drill down into Alexis Rocha and what we could see with him and Terence Crawford. And then look at where we're at now, about to go into February. Alexis Rocha is the man. So that being said, we're going to see what happens. But I'm telling you right now, after watching him fight tonight, I think he makes the fight a little interesting against Crawford, but I think Crawford will just dust him off. Rocha was getting hit by the Ghanaian was doing some good stuff. He just was a little sloppy, and he just didn't seem to have the power. Again, he was a much smaller fighter. He was coming up, 6 days' notice. But he was countering Rocha. He was hitting Rocha with shots. On a couple occasions, he made Rocha back up. And if that guy can hit Rocha with those shots, you'd have to think that Terence Crawford will be able to get off with that and a whole lot more. Terence Crawford has much longer arms than the opponent Rocha fought. And Terence Crawford hits a lot harder. He's a lot more intelligent. He has a lot more in his arsenal. And a way lot more experience. So it's kind of hard to go against Crawford. But nevertheless, at least I think we have a pretty good idea of who's going to be Crawford's mandatory. And Rocha, he had a little cut over his eye. He'd have to wait to let that heal up. But he should fall within a window to where he can be back in the ring. Let's see, February, March, maybe around April time frame. And that should be right around the time where Crawford says he wants to return. We know that'll be right before Spence and Thurman fight. And then that star should line up for if Crawford were to win, and Spence were to win, and Spence decides to actually come back down to 147, where we could finally see the undisputed. But I'm telling you right now, if they miss that opportunity, Crawford and Spence, to make that fight, we are not going to see the undisputed distinction at 147 this year. Just like more than likely we may not see the undisputed distinction at 175 between Berderbiev and Bivol. But that being said, more to come. And I'm going to tell y'all this right now. There's no content creator who knows what the hell is going on. Period. Everyone sit here and they speculate. Even I sit here and I try to look at everything that's going on. All the outside factors that could influence a fight. And then I give my perspective. But I'll never sit here and say, I know for a fact. Don't believe anything unless it comes from my channel. I think that's corny when people do that. You know what I'm saying? What I'm telling you is I'm offering you a healthy dialogue. And then, you take it from there. And, in addition to your opinion and your perspective, and then you see what you can make of it. But one thing I will tell you is it does look like Alexis Rocha. It should be made the mandatory because Ortiz and Stanley Eunice, Stanley Eunice just got cleared to fight, so they have actually a date for Ortiz and Stanley Eunice to fight now. So they just firmed that up this week. Keith Thurman, he's fighting Spence. He's the number 2, so the number 3 is Rocha. So I can't see anyone else being made the mandatory. But I'll tell you this. Now, this is a fact I'm about to give you. This isn't me speculating. This isn't healthy dialogue. This is a fact. Just because someone's ranked number 1 in a sanctioning body, that doesn't make them the mandatory. So don't be surprised. Like I always say, if some craziness happens with Blair Cobb, if Blair Cobb somehow ends up becoming Crawford's mandatory, y'all go kill him just if he has to fight Rocha. But I'm sure as hell somebody going to pull up on him like that man with the hammer pulled up on Nancy Pelosi's house and, hit her husband in the head and fractured his skull. I'm sure somebody going to pull up on Crawford's ass if he fights my boy Blair the Flair. But anyway, I like Blair the Flair. I think he's the future of boxing. Anyway, that being said, y'all keep cool. Shout out to all the veterans, people from all 7 continents. Terence Crawford and Alexis Rocha. I hope they announce the fight. Whether it's Rocha or whoever Crawford's going to fight, but I pray Terence Crawford doesn't find himself in some 3-fight deal with De La Hoya. I just think that would be a horrible move. But then again, he may get some wicked guarantee of $10 or $15 million a fight. Who knows what happens? But we know De La Hoya ain't putting up that kind of money, man. You saw Ryan Garcia threatened to leave. He had the stuff he had to go through just to get the kind of money that he felt was fair. I'm not going to say he got what he deserved, but what he felt was fair. So Terence Crawford, I don't think, should be foolish and make a move like that. But that's just for me and what I'm seeing and the fact that I know De La Hoya doesn't have a good relationship with these other promoters. And I know he's burned a lot of bridges. just like Eddie Hearn has burned a lot of bridges, going to the media and saying crazy stuff about these promoters, to where now his stable of fighters suffer because he can't make the fights that need to be made in order for his fighters to grow and develop and for their careers to keep moving forward. But that being said, man, y'all keep cool. Leave your comments below. Please consider subscribing. And y'all keep cool, and I'm in the breeze.